Well, hello, everyone here. So happy to be here and to reconnect with Vendavo team. I've been following Vendavo for a while. So let me just set the stage how I got into this mess, right? So I was a global pricing director back when Vendavo had the first cohorts of products and services back in 2009 and 15. And I've been following Vendavo ever since. In the pricing world, as you know, once you get into pricing, you get it. You just stay in pricing, right? So you either love it or you hate it. So everything was going great. I had a great job, living in Switzerland, living the dream. And 2015, I have epiphany. Call me crazy, but I said, wow, something is missing. Something's not quite right. Am I giving back to this world? Am I giving back? I'm so blessed. I have so many things to offer. I'm a good citizen, maybe not good enough. So in 2015, I started researching and got into the sustainability topic, but I said everything I do in my life, I'd like to really connect to the commercial excellence, revenue recognition, and really linking it to the final consumer. So that's how I got into the Zurich doctorate program, running sustainability as the two additional value drivers to the value-based pricing that I discovered with Vendavo and with my employee back in 2009. Let me tell you, going back to academia after 25 years in the real world, it was quite a challenge. It's like having a tattoo on your face. Yeah, I'm like, I go back to academia and they're all screaming at you. We don't need your opinions. We don't care about your experience. And what do you mean you don't need my experience? I have an opinion. Nobody cares about your opinion. You need to run research, data, statistics, and really give proven facts. And then you draw conclusions and give recommendations. So it was quite a wake-up call going back to academia. But it's the best thing that happened to me. And through pain, as you might know, you become better people and you become better leaders. So in 2020, I got my doctorate degree. It was quite a journey, 5 years, additional full-time job, family. But it's the best thing that happened to me again. So thanks to pricing, thanks to commercial excellence, I took it to the next level. And here I am in front of you. So pricing for sustainability. Before I go through a couple slides with you, how many of you really in your professional lives are dealing with sustainability topic? If you can raise your hands. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. In your private life, if I may ask. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, good. So good. So hopefully we can learn something together today, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, either now or later on. So, going back to academia, the professors screaming at you, they don't care about your opinions, right? It's all about facts, 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 research. Also, they want to know why you care about pricing and linking it to sustainability. So you had to come up with a, really research paradigm. Why is it so important to go after that and create something in the academia for the enterprises? So that was my research paradigm that I came up with. That really stays with me today in everything that I do, and really go back to creating value. And really, if you do not start addressing sustainability, environmental and social drivers as part of your value-based pricing, it's a long-term journey, right? It's a journey, it's complex, but it's a journey. Then long-term, you will not sustain your economic performance, and you will see that, a couple slides that I put together for you. So, everything is changing, right? So change is the most prominent these days. So academia is changing, frameworks changing, definitions are changing. From the very old conservative 4P marketing paradigm, right? So now we're talking about 7 Ps. So you're adding people, planet, and profits, right? To your 4 Ps of marketing. Well, Vendavo, also on the P journey here, you can see people, process, products, perspective, so good. So Vendavo is on the right track. Maybe planet is missing, but we'll get there in a minute. But absolutely, that is a key paradigm shift in the academia. Also, you will see through the presentation the world of true value pricing appearing from the value-based pricing. So, and you will see what that means. Also, complete rethink of what value-based pricing is longer term for the enterprises. Another one that you will hear is the total cost accounting. I'm an accountant before I got into pricing. So, you know, your old standard conservative accounting principles are really questions, because now everybody's looking at total cost accounting, environmental P&L, social P&L, and then your regular economic P&L. So that is changing as well. All right, sustainability. There are many frameworks appearing. The one that I've been using in my research and my work is this typology. It's called the sustainability typology, right? So really moving from doing business as usual, so economic profit line, profit loss, and then really caring about your shareholders, all the way to 3.0 sustainability. So in my research, I had to narrow my focus. So I focused on the UK manufacturing market, 107 companies, mostly large, really commodities, real old way of thinking. And so really I started testing where they are on this typology. And plus where they are on the pricing value creation also journey. When you start talking to them, their opinion, again, they think they're great, right? And then you start testing where they are really on that typology, they're really not that far advanced. And that's the reality. Yes, finally, Robert, we're talking about it, but we're still early stages of the journey, as the research shows, right? Not opinion. So let's quickly go through this typology. So business as usual, that's pretty straightforward, right? So that's the top. It's economic concerns, shareholder value. So that's really. Then going to business sustainability 1.0. Here your CEOs are really opportunists, right? So reactionary mode, they don't change any process. They start adding some concepts like, you know, creating shared value, CSR, et cetera, you probably hear that in your companies. So, but really they don't change anything. You know, the minute, as we say, the shit hits the fan, they start firing people, that's all they know, right? So they're very careful about their costs, etc. Because they don't know any better. No judgment, it's just the way life is. So that's your business sustainability 1.0, right? So three-dimensional concerns, refine shareholder value somewhat, but not really drastic. Then you go to business sustainability 2.0 right there. Your CEOs, they become integrators. They really start questioning your products, services, your processes. They're trying to really make some changes, inside out view. So that's your business sustainability 2.0. Inside out, how we can decrease those externalities we call. And that's the capital cost of doing business out there to the environment. But again, it's an inside out view. So those are the integrated CEOs that are driving these businesses. And then you go to business sustainability 3.0, what we call outside in. These are the CEOs that actually, they really think about the world, the people in a true sense. So they're really thinking what kind of products, processes, and services I can create to improve the environment, to improve the social well-being. We call them alchemists, in the research world, in the academia world. Actually, research shows that only 1% to 2% of all CEOs out there in that bracket. So it's just the reality. So it's a journey. We started it. We need to continue persevering it. So, and then when I plugged these 107 UK manufacturing firms based on the research, so they all were really in this bracket, business as usual and business sustainability 1.0, yeah? So that's kind of the reality. But that was back in 2020. Hopefully based on the recommendations and the work we've done, they progressed somewhat in between 1.0 and 2.0. All right, environmental, social value drivers as the new norms of your value-based pricing. So true value pricing, that's the concept that is emerging. Triple bottom line, that's your environmental P&L, social P&L, and your regular economic P&L. True cost accounting, how it's all adding together and what's the real true cost of doing business. Pricing and sustainability integration, and global human rights framework. So all these are merging out there. So it's good to see that you guys working with the Deloitte folks. I've been working with the Deloitte London office. So a lot of different tools and frameworks really being developed by these key accounting firms. And so different types of pricing appearing also to influence sustainability. You might have heard about giving method. Demarketing is a big one out there, really how to decrease the sustainability cost on the environmental side and social side. Green tariffs, I'm sure you heard, and then alternative pricing, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot going on in the true value pricing agenda, yeah, how you take value-based pricing to the next level. So, couple things based on the true value pricing framework. These accounting firms, again, these are not opinions, these are true facts that were estimated. So the economic cost of greenhouse gas emissions, loss of natural resources, loss of nature-based services such as carbon storage by forests, climate change, I'm sure you're involved in these discussions, air pollution-related health issues were estimated to be globally around 4.7 trillion a year. So that's your cost. But that was before the pandemic and before the war that's going on in the Ukraine. So we are busy in the research world now, really looking at these costs up, differently, because there will be a different price bucket or cost bucket. So the majority environmental externality costs, as we call them, are from greenhouse, 38%, water use, 25%, land use, 24%, air pollution, 7%, land and water pollution, 5%, and waste, 1%. So that's where we were before the pandemic and the war in the Ukraine. So very, very important. There is another great framework that Deloitte has put together, and I'm absolutely loving it and learning more and more about it. It's called the Environmental Priority Strategies, EPS. Just keep an eye on that as it is being developed. It's very closely linked to willingness to pay index. Yeah, so there's a statistical analysis going on and the correlation between the two and the database and cost by each industry that's being developed. So, and that translates into the environmental load units, yeah? So they called ELU, really to address these type of costs and what's happening out there in the environment. So more to come on that. And so that's really the tool of the future and how it should be incorporated in your cost or in your value creation, etc. Some companies are more progressive than others, as that's life. So I don't know if you heard or you read about what Puma did in 2011, 12, and 13. Anybody heard what Puma did? They were quite pioneers. So they created EPL, environmental P&L. So they looked at these costs for their processes and products, and they put a tag on it. So the first challenge really to come up with this cost, just environmental cost. So the tag of their 6 key externalities for Puma at the time in 2011 was 145 million euros. Yeah, so that's how just the 6 externalities. Then they said, okay, let's take it to the next level. And they looked at their key brands and see if they do something different with the products and services, how would that reduce the externalities that they're causing to the environment? So they created, I don't know if you know or you heard or you read, what it's called in-cycle cotton shirts, in-cycle shoes. And so the results of this analysis using these frameworks from Deloitte was that 1/3 of the cost would be reduced if they produce this in-cycle cotton shirts or shoes, right? So 1/3 of the cost would be reduced and the externalities will be minimized. First challenge is to come up with the cost, right? Not so simple. Second thing, once you come up with the cost, what do you do with it? If your competitors are not following you, right? So if there's no requirement by the government or any other institutions, right, to do it and really fight for greener products and how you impact the environment. So they get into a little bit of a trouble, with their competitiveness at the time. So they learned internally they're still doing that, but externally they're not really disclosing that openly like when they did back in 2011, 12, and 13. So, and then they looked at their 6 brands that represent 80% of their revenues to see what they can do differently, right, in terms of products and services and how they impact the environment. Humanity challenges, let's set the stage. Again, this was done before the pandemic and before the war that's going on currently. So 60% of people who live in poverty work in agriculture. 60%. 800 million people are undernourished and suffer from hunger. More than 1.9 billion adults are overweight, of whom 600 million being obese. This was before the pandemic. Research shows, no opinions, remember? Research shows that on average, each human being gained 5 to 10 kilos during the pandemic. So those numbers are really changing, right? And a third of the food produced is lost or wasted, which amounts to about 1.3 billion tons annually. Humanity does have some challenges to take care of. So social sustainability is becoming equally very, very important. True value pricing. We keep capitalizing on this concept. So the new framework that's being developed now, it's called TIMM, TIM we call it. So basically it's really the true impact measurement and management. So this particular framework developed by Deloitte in conjunction with KPMG and PwC, also giving you transparency what the products and services that you offer and processes that you're running do to the environment, environmentally and socially, and what the costs are. And also this particular tool also giving you a sense what would happen to the environment or social capital bucket if the business stopped or ceased to exist, right? So it's a very good framework giving you transparency, somewhat linked to the blockchain technology, and we'll talk about that in a second, yeah? So the result of that framework, and again, this was before the pandemic, again, I keep repeating that, yeah, because we're busy recalculating all this right now. So livestock farming costs the environment 1.81 trillion per year, equivalent to 134% of its production value, yeah? So crop production costs 115 trillion per year, equivalent to 170% of its production value. These costs are not reflected in food prices, yeah? Who is going to pay that? Who is really going to pay for that? So that's a big question out there. Once you do calculate that, so how are we going to deal with all that? If we continue with the same resource management as a humanity, the rate we've been going, by 2030 we would need 1.5 planet of resources, and by 2050 we would need 2 planets of resources to support the way we've been consuming resources and what it's been, really costing us all these years. So very interesting findings, and then of course the challenge is what are we going to do about it, right? And then the question still remains, what's happening to the food prices, etc., etc. Social sustainability, it's all about people. It's all about us. So there are more people suffering in slavery today than during the entire 400 years of the transatlantic slave trade. That's pretty amazing. 40 million people suffer in modern slavery, 160 million children in child labor. 77% businesses admit to modern slavery. There's a little caveat here. For example, a country like China, there's no terminology of slavery there, right? But when you start digging through their human rights framework, so that number will go up, right, of the businesses and the supply chain. So we do have a challenge. So currently, I'm part of this NGO in Geneva. We established that NGO in 2018. And so far, running the human rights framework that I'll show you in a second what we came up with, so far we have not had a success story. Everybody who came to us for us to do the audit, to run the blockchain technology through their processes, to understand their businesses from A to Z, nobody came as a success factor through that testing. So that's just the reality, yeah? So that's really the reality of where we are with this topic. How many of you familiar with UN Compact SDGs? Good. Shaking your hand, that's very good. At least one in the room. Do you know how many we have of those? No. We have 17 SDGs, yeah, set in front of us. And here's the famous wheel. I'm sure you've seen it, but maybe not paid attention. This was set in front of us back in 2010 by United Nations, right? So the vision of 2050, which is around the corner, right? We're approaching that. There are 17 SDGs. SDG stands for Sustainability Development Goals, right? So what we've done in the Slavefreetrade organization, we researched, no opinions, remember? We researched every single SDG, the principles behind, and we came up based on that, on this human rights framework, yeah? So that's your social sustainability. So what's the spectrum for us? On the left-hand side is your slave, right? Modern slavery. And if you're really good business with purpose, on this side of the spectrum, decent place of work. Yeah? So that's what we're trying to audit and really get the companies situated on that spectrum based on this framework. There are 10 principles. There are 10 questions per principle. And we go and we talk to all layers of the organization in these companies. And they come forward. They want to know. Because I'll show you what research shows, why it's important for the folks. So, no forced labor or human trafficking, principle number 1. No child labor. No discrimination. 3, access to grievance resolution mechanisms is very important. 4, safe and healthy workplace, fair pay hours, freedom of association, appropriate employment relations and written contracts, dignity and respect, and 10, supply chain traceability and transparency. So those are the 10 principles of the human rights framework that we are testing, the B2B and B2C companies that come forward. And the pipeline of our clients is quite long. So people are really waking up. So, for example, the iPhones that you all have, right, in your hands. Do you know that 99.9% of iPhones that you have in your hands do have child labor in them and do have slave labor in them? Doesn't matter for you, that's one thing. Matters to you, another thing. But that's just really a shocking fact. For example, all the gadgets that we have in our hands. Chocolate. We all love chocolate, right? I live in Switzerland. We absolutely love chocolate. There is no one bar of chocolate that is produced without slave labor or child labor. It's just a fact, okay? But we have good news. For the dessert of my presentation, we have very good news. We have the first chocolate producer called Up Chocolate. Take a look, research. We're going live there in August with them. The first cocoa beans linked to the Colombian farm producer that we use the blockchain technology to track and trace the production from A to Z. This will be the first chocolate certified that will be free of child labor and slave labor. So that's just the reality. But good news, we have a success story and we're really making a big bang out of it because it is very important for us and for the producer, for the company, for our partner. And again, going back, it's all about value creation. Why is it important? Research shows, no opinions, right? Research shows 70% of consumers want to buy slave-free. So that's a good sign, right? And then 45% annual sales growth on slave-free. So the research shows we have action groups, we have all sorts of groups that we're trying to understand, especially the younger generations. So it's an amazing group of people, and we, leaders that have been in the corporate world for a while, we are not prepared to deal with them. Yeah? So it's an absolutely different generation, and we need to be prepared. So, to conclude my speech, and again, it's such an honor to be here with you all. We are facing the reality, right? Hyperinflation, pandemic, post-pandemic world, etc., etc. A couple of weeks ago, there was a meeting of shareholders of a company with Mr. Buffett, who is 91, Warren Buffett, and his vice president, who is 98 years old. And somebody asked him a question. So what should we do during this hyperinflation environment? What should we do? And everybody expected a really financial answer from the guru of pricing, the guru of value. And he said, stop being busy fools, invest in a skill set, continue learning, get out of your sheltered lives and join this exciting journey of uncertainty. That's what he said. As for me, as a researcher and a thought leader, a mother, a wife, so I would like to leave you with a little message, if I may. I agree. The uncertainty is enormous right now. Nobody knows what will happen. The whole world is really changing. Everything's changing. So invest in yourself. Invest in the skill that will help you longer term to be a better leader, a better citizen, a better parent, etc. Just invest. Get out of your busy, full lives. So there are 4 buckets to think about. Your subject, absolutely what you're good at, because everything is changing. The value-based pricing of 2009, when I was implementing it, and today, 2 different things, right? So subject, invest in your subject matter expertise. Second one is the method-specific competency. Are you good with media and digitalization, right? So what takes my son 5 minutes takes me hours to figure out, right? So what the hell am I supposed to do? The next one is social competencies. Are we ready to deal with the younger generations? Are we ready to deal with some other social competencies out there that are appearing because of what's happening in the world? And the last but not least is your personal competencies. How are you dealing with your work? How are you dealing with your professional life based on your personal competencies? So do invest in yourself. As for me, I follow a very simple mantra. I have 3 things that are important for me. 1, if I continue having curious mind, I continue learning. 2nd, if I create value, very important. And 3rd, if I have fun, because I'm American, I have to have fun. So 3 things if I have, I am at peace. Thank you very much.